Hi guys, I thought I would do something special. Today is the anniversary of the Titanic sinking, April 14th, 1912. And what's ironic is I was waiting for all the sound outside. Someone's mulching. It's this huge truck and it won't stop. It's annoying the hell out of me. But then what I just realized was that this is probably what it would sound like on the Titanic. This constant mechanical hum of sound, and then the ocean. Um, so we're just going to deal with it because I really think this is literally what it would be like. So, making lemonade out of lemons. Here we go. The Titanic sank in the Atlantic the night of April 14th, 1912. I believe 1,400 passengers died. And we all know the story. It hit an iceberg and sank, and a certain amount of people got away on the lifeboats. However, there weren't enough lifeboats because of financial decisions, and it was just a whole cluster of circumstances that created this disaster. I personally was obsessed with the Titanic growing up. Because it's just such a fascinating story of the beauty of the ship and the dichotomy of the three different financial classes: third class, second class, first class. First class being the best treated, better food, better accommodations, a better view, a better treatment, um, and a lot of what's ironic is a lot of highly noted people, rich people were more than just rich, of course, if they're in first class, but I mean like millionaires of the time, like the moguls of the time were on the ship, mixed with like some of the poorest immigrants, like Irish people in the third class. That would have been me. I would have been in the third class. Um, and if you've ever seen pictures, third class wasn't really that bad, and they probably had more fun. However, when the ship sank, the ones that were completely forgotten and had no voice and no chance to get off were the third class and then the second class. So, the tragedy was that people were treated by financial status and class and not as human beings. That was the tragedy of the whole thing. And also the fact that the ship was just so beautiful and never really had its chance to even complete a voyage. So, and a million stories on the ship. I've always been fascinated with it. So here we go. In the past, we have the Page of Cups in reverse. I believe that was messages about the ship that weren't relayed properly. I don't want to blame the captain, Captain Smith, but all of them, probably Ismay is a huge factor in all of this, where he ignored a lot of messages, news, suggestions, because of money. And here we have the Four of Pentacles, which was someone holding tightly to the money, and not thinking about work that should have been put into the ship to make it safe. Justice, the injustice of the separation of the class and people not getting a proper chance to save their life. And it all came down to that money. Now, this card I feel is interesting because when I look at it, there's a lot of factors. The Wheel of Fortune. It was fated. This was fated to happen. The planets, it was an alignment. And then here, this to me is like the boiler room, and you see the fire. And I did a reading on the Titanic just for myself a couple of years ago, and I got a similar message, was that there was a fire in the Titanic before it even set sail. Down in the boiler room, there was a fire, and it weakened the iron. And so when the Titanic was cut by the iceberg, I believe that because of this fire that the message didn't get through, Ismay did not deliver that message, it was kept secret. The Titanic was actually doomed from the start because it had compromised girders in the boiler room. It took on water much faster and sank faster than it should have, um, because of that. And yeah, look at all the fire. It's obvious to me that that was what happened. And also, another message I had gotten was that the moon phases, there was a moon phase, like there was a full moon, and it had made the, let's see if I can get this right, it was April, so it could have been warm for a while. Some of the icebergs, it made the water rise in the ocean, and then when the moon phase went down back to, I believe, the new moon or the whatever. Um, I'm so good at that. It made the icebergs, some of them broke apart, and it made a larger ice field. And at the time that they were sailing, there wasn't much of a moonlight, and they couldn't see the ice field that had gathered in that area. So there was just a whole factor that had contributed to this, to the disaster, like the perfect storm, as they say. Temperance. Again, it was just everything was out of whack. But then planetary wise, it was like the perfect storm, but the imperfect situation. And here you go, is you see this water, you see the water rising up around her. This is, and people frantically trying to save their lives, and they're sending off the flares. Um, it was a frantic race to save their life, but the fact was that most people on that ship, many of them were going to drown, and they just couldn't keep up. They were sending the flares out, and they just couldn't keep up with the rise of the water. And I even see what looks like a face here in the water, like people drowning, and it looks like a man's face with a mustache. Oh gosh, yeah. And as I started this reading, I started to get really cold. My body got super cold, but now I feel hot because I see this fire, the fire from down in the boiler room. Okay, so this would be the parties on the ship, the Eight of Swords in prison, being down, some people being let out of third class, and some people not being able to get out of third class. Some people feeling imprisoned, they just couldn't get out, and they had to accept that they literally had no chance, and they were underwater. Oh gosh, that one's a very sad card. This is people literally, because of their class, having absolutely no chance and drowning in the water, in their beds. Here we have the Three of Wands. This was probably the people, someone standing on the ship, okay? And this could, you know what this is to me actually? This is someone who knew what, could see the ship going down and couldn't do anything about it, or so they say. This is someone who had warning, who knew, but they felt like there was nothing they could really do. This is someone actually who wanted to help. And I also feel like these were the people on the lifeboats who escaped early and had to watch the ship go down. And then afterwards, the truth. Well, this is the hopes and fears, but I feel like this is the action not taken, many lies even after they had court cases forever, lies in the courtroom to cover up the truth. Ismay again, he got off, escaped on a boat, which is a cowardly thing to do. I mean, human instinct, who wouldn't do that? But yeah, and then even he had to live the rest of his life in a lie because of what happened. The outcome, well, we all know what the outcome was. And as I look at this, I see that this is the death, and this is the mourning, and this is God, and a lot of them hearing their calling. And it's like it was just destined to be, but at the same time, what was the right thing to do? And the right thing to do was they should have had the lifeboats on in the first place and saved many lives. Knight of Pentacles. Slow down. It was almost like they knew. They just didn't have enough time. They didn't have enough time. And you see what this looks like. Someone's gown, a coat, and their gown, like their sleeping gown underneath. And a lot of them had to accept that they were going to accept their fate at this point. And I mean, I don't know. I look at this Knight of Pentacles and I think, what does that mean? I see the green. I also see a lot of having to give up their possessions. and hurry. They had to hurry to get on the lifeboats and sending out messages to nearby ships for help. Um, Lost wishes, many, the hope of dreams, right? The unsinkable. The promise was that it was unsinkable, but the truth was, it was a disaster of man. And I see this card right here, and that's someone in their birth. Um, and they're not sure what to do. Do I trust that this is unsinkable? Um, they were lied to. They just couldn't see the truth. So a lot of people lost their lives due to timing. Um, they didn't have time to make the right decision, and they trusted that they would be okay, but they weren't. So some people died with that. And up here, when I see the Queen of Wands, I see that again as a fire in the boiler room, an explosion. There was an explosion, a judgment, the end, acceptance. So I was trying to tune in to some of the people who had been on the ship, and one of the saddest stories that I read was the Goodwin family. Um, they were leaving England, and they were on a different ship to go to Niagara Falls in America. And they had to get off that ship. Something happened, and then they all were transferred to the Titanic. And you can imagine, and 6 children, I believe. Can you imagine? They were probably really excited. They were third class, but nevertheless, it would have been extremely exciting. And they all died. An entire family died. And you can imagine that mother, how she felt, having to give up her life and knowing her children would die. And there was a baby who was found, an unnamed, unknown, for many years. That finally they did a DNA test and found out he was their youngest. And it's stories like that that make you very sad and just remind you that things like this don't need to happen. But that's what I get. It was, the Titanic was a beautiful ship, but it was a failure of man because it was greed. The heart of it was greed and negligence. And it was fated. It was fated to happen. So that we'll never forget. Well, thanks for watching, and I hope you have a great day. Take care. Bye.